Bonjour. Welcome to session 4 of the French sessions. Today we're going to be looking at the IRP. I'm Madam Griffiths, I'll be assisting, and Madam Lloyd will be taking you through the presentation on the independent research project. If you have any questions, remember to use the Q&A.
Bonjour. So I have given it the title IRP, but it will include this year other type of assessment when it is relevant. So what are the aim of this session? The aim of our session tonight are what is expected in an oral task for your assessment. Also, what are the French resources, how you can use them, and how you refer to them in your oral, and how you can organize your presentation. So first of all, what is expected for this assessment? So in the text is written, it's either an IRP this year or what WGEC called a center device speaking task lasting 11-12 minutes on theme 3 or theme 4, which is exactly the same time than your IRP, plus and on a theme you already know, so it's a bit like the same thing. You know the background of what you have to do. So what's expected of you is expected of you to be clear. How can you be clear? Speaking slowly, prepare a lot in advance will help you to be clear when you do your presentation. So also you are expected to take the initiative during the speaking. So for example, if your teacher asks you, tell you something and ask a question about it, what you think about it, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ce que je viens de dire? If you don't agree, feel free to say it in French, of course, like je ne suis pas d'accord, à mon avis, or peut-être, mais, or je crois que c'est plutôt. Don't say non, because that's a bit too aggressive, but any other way to say that you disagree, or any other way to take the initiative of the oral is good. So then you have to also give opinions and thoughts. So again, as we've done in the writing, you could say things like à mon avis, selon moi, après avoir lu, and you quote your source, j'ai pensé que, I thought that, and that will help you to remember to give an opinion. Remember to mention your sources too. Then, when speaking, use a wide range of vocabulary, and structure is the same than every bit of this exam is more or less the same. You have to use all the vocab you know and of the structure you can think of. So for example, you could use subjunctive like je ne crois pas que, or il faut que vous sachiez que. You should know that, okay? Plus subjunctive, and those are good for you speaking. Now, show also a very good knowledge of France and French-speaking countries, or French-speaking countries, depend on your IRP, linked with the topics discussed. So you cannot just do a research and give facts. You need to know a bit more about. You need to know your research really well. So how you support your opinion with example from your sources. Yes, you show your knowledge with your examples, in fact, and also you show your knowledge by giving conclusion. So you show the person will examine you that you thought of what you researched, and you came with conclusion about it. So next, again, what is expected for the IRP more specifically. For the IRP, more specifically, you have to choose a topic that interests you. So you certainly have done it already. It's and you're working on it. You have to remember that your question should be rooted in a French-speaking society. So it interests you, but it has to be linked with a French-speaking country. Also, your question has to stimulate a discussion. You cannot just ask a question for the sake of asking a question. It has to be a specific type of question. So, for example, don't ask quel est le rôle de, sur ou dans. For example, if I take Napoleon, a lot of French news are talking of Napoleon lately. Don't ask quel est le rôle de Napoléon dans l'éducation française. Why? Why you should not ask that? Because it will lead to a list. You will just list things. There is no discussion in that type of question in a way, or it would be difficult to discuss. Instead, you should ask something like dans quelle mesure a un impact sur. So if I keep Napoléon as an example, dans quelle mesure Napoléon a un impact sur l'éducation en France, ou link with theme 3, like if you were doing the centered assessed speaking. Est-ce que les immigrés ont les mêmes opportunités que les Français de souche? That's another type of way to ask a question. Why that type of question? Because they open those questions open to a discussion, and it's easier also for your teacher to ask you question about it. Also easier for you to think of question about it. So now you try to end your 2-minute presentation with a statement or a question which leads to the discussion. Why should you do that? Because it helps, first of all, it gives a structure to your presentation, and also because it will more or less, you will know the first question that will be asked. If you state something in your discussion or give a question yourself, you know that the examiner, the teacher will ask about it. So it will be less stressful to start the discussion. Now, if you had been sitting the exam this year, you would have had to fill in that paper, which is a pro forma. You don't have to do it, but I think it's part of it, especially if you see that bit. The second part of the pro forma is really useful for the preparation of your oral. Why is it useful? First of all, you've got the title of your independent research. So what I would do if I was doing my own research, I would use a card and write my title like it's asked in the pro forma. So write the title, your question, and like that you can keep it next to you, and you know that you cannot go away from that question. Then that pro forma is telling you to outline 10 key points on your independent research project. And what I like about it, now if you've already done your project, outlining 10 key points will show you if you know enough about it, if you've got enough ideas to answer questions in the discussion, and also will help you to organize your ideas, because perhaps you know a lot already, but it's always good to see it in written, just bullet point 10 in your mother tongue. Doesn't need to be in French. It's just to remember what you will do, what you should do, and see if you missed out something. And then the last bit is the source referenced. So that should be done all along while you're working normally. But what's good there is if you write your sources, you can highlight which one you will use in the presentation, which one you would like to try using in the discussion with the teacher, okay, or the examiner. So it's always good, and by listing them, you'll see if you've got enough. You can list them, see if they all speak of the same thing, or if they defend you different points. So it can be really useful, I think. So now, if we concentrate on the resources, so rechercher les sources, always French language sources, okay? Nothing wrong in reading something in English about what you want to discuss, but all the sources have to be in French. So you cannot refer to The Guardian, or you cannot refer to what you heard on BBC Radio 4. You have to refer to Le Monde or France Inter, okay, the French equivalent of those sources. You can use any type of sources. So you could use books if you had books, magazines, film, radio programs like interviews, of course, internet, and a lot of magazines nowadays or programs, films are on the internet. So use a website. You can also use social media. If you in contact with French-speaking people, you you can ask them to answer a few questions linked to your topic if your topic is in about something of news of nowadays. So you could ask them to answer a few questions about it. Why not? And use it and show that you did it and to use it for your role. Now, if you look at French-speaking websites, here are some examples I wrote. So you got google.fr. So FR is France, BE c'est Belgique, CA Canada, CH c'est Suisse. So those websites, I don't know what country you want to use, if it's France or Belgium or Quebec or Switzerland or any other French-speaking country, but those four Google link you with interesting topics. So FR, BE, CA, and CH perhaps are good, in fact. I also listed some websites which are useful, and I'm pretty sure you already know about with your teachers. For example, you've got Un jour une actu. Un jour une actu is an online magazine for children normally, but they got like 2-minute video, which are on a lot of topics. And I'm pretty sure if you type your topic with that, you'll find something about what you're doing. They also got articles which are easier to read with even some vocab is explained on the side. So certainly you already use that in class with your teacher. So it should be easy to find and easy to use too. Also, you could use France 24. Alors, if you want to use France 24, there are a lot of interesting news from France, Africa, and a lot of French-speaking countries, in fact. Type by your research. If you type France 24, your research, type also France. Otherwise, because we live in Britain, you are sent to the English website. So remember to put the FR or just type by your research France. Okay. Then I put some TV channel. TV5 is really good. Also, BFM TV is quite good for interviews. If you're doing something on politics, for example, BFM TV has got all the interviews of last week. In fact, it's a bit delayed for you to watch, but it's 3 days delayed. That's all. Also, I put 3 French stations, which are the equivalent of BBC in a way. So France Inter would be Radio 4. France Culture would be the cultural side of Radio 4. And France Info is for the news, and it's news all day long. So they could have things linked with your topic. Then I put a magazine, a newspaper. Le Monde.fr would be your equivalent of the Times, okay? So perhaps the French is a bit difficult, but you've got time to read. You can use dictionary for new words. It could be interesting. Of course, with I'm thinking of newspaper like that, you cannot access sometimes a full article. But if you read articles which were, like, say, last month or even last year, which are still relevant, they're free. The whole thing is completely free. Another thing I thought you could use are museum websites. Depend on your topic. So this one is good also with theme 3 if you're doing the Center d'Essai Speaking. The Musée de l'Histoire de l'Immigration is really good and it's got a lot of videos, a lot of text. It's really interesting, in fact, if you're doing something on immigration. So I wanted to show you 2 examples. Here is a page of France 24. I just typed France 24 France, and here was a page on Friday, and already there, if you are looking for ideas, you got Les Accords d'Évian, cadre historique des relations France-Algérie, linked to your theme 4, in fact, and of course COVID-19 for the actual news and what France is doing about it. And you can read, even if you like sport, about le PSG, if you're a football fan, to to know what's going on, and you could do that all year long like that. You're practicing, you're listening, you're practicing, you're reading in French, and it's useful not only for the oral exam, it's useful for the the 3 part of your exams this year, or all the unit in fact. Now I wanted to show you a video. So what's interesting, you can use video in your as your sources. Always check for that little bit thing. And what you can do is change the speed. You change the speed of the video. Sometimes normal speed is a bit difficult because those people who are speaking in new videos, they're French speaker first language or second language, but in the same level than French, like in Welsh and English. And it's a bit difficult to understand. So go to the speed. I would go to 0.75, nothing lower than that. Otherwise, it's a bit bizarre and you don't understand what they're saying and it's cracking in the background. So, but 0.75 is good. And that one was the real lottery winner because I found they got subtitles. So put the subtitle on and you can listen and at the same time know what they can read, what they're talking about, and it's really useful and helpful. And yeah, for something lasting 8 minutes, it helps a lot. So remember, Un jour in actu does it too. Remember to check the setting and reduce the speed, and if you're lucky, put the subtitle on. So now the preparation of your oral. So when you have your theme, now. Check if there are enough sources. So that's the thing. You could be interested in a theme, but if you don't find enough sources, don't do it. Choose something else. You need support for your oral. So find something with enough sources. Then each time you find an interesting source, note it. As I show you with second part of the pro forma, write that source. Each time you find one, because I can promise you won't remember all of them. You won't remember where you find things. So you will have the knowledge and you won't have the source. So it's good to note when you found. And it's also a skill for next year in university. Do that until you finish your studies. Find the source, note it. It's not only useful for French this next month, it's useful for the rest of your studies, in fact. So now how you refer to your sources, you can follow what I thought the Harvard source presentation. So it's the most used, I would say, nowadays. There are others, but this one is easy and you can do it. So you write your author, surnames and initial if it's a person, year of publication in round brackets, then the title. So either if it's a book or if it's a magazine, the title of the article. Same if it's online, title of the web page, if there is the title of the video, etc., etc. And then you write either the edition if it's a book, or available at, and you link. And then the access date if it's a website. If it's a book, write the place of publication and the publisher. Follow that pattern for every one of your sources, so it will make it easy. First of all, you will know them really well, and it will be easier to find them. So here is an example. I leave you 50 seconds to think how. So I leave you have a look here. So what are on that page? There are difficulties, and how would you reference this page quickly? So okay, so this one is a difficult one. So I'm thinking I'll do it quicker with you. So if you want to reference it on your own, you can reference it in the Q&A, and Madame Griffiths will correct it for you. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. So okay, what's difficult? I would like you to write in the Q&A if you know what is difficult here, because where is your author? That would be my difficulty. So what would you write as an author there? Okay, so what I would write, okay, perhaps I'm wrong, but that's what I decided to do, is TV5 Monde. TV5 Monde is who wrote that article on La Commune de Paris culture, okay? La Commune de Paris is my title, so I just left the title to make it easy, because Mars, in this month in France, is a commemoration of that event. Okay, so that will be the web page title, La Commune de Paris, and new link, that's the easy bit, is at the top. Okay, so now how would I write that? I wrote it here. So my author is TV5 Monde. My title, La Commune de Paris. Available at, I put in brackets, my website. I just copy and paste. And then today dates, because I pretend it's today we watch it. So 22 mars 2021. Okay, so here's another one, a bit easier. So I would like you to refer this page. So refer this page like if you were doing an oral on Senegal, so which is an African country in Western Africa where people speak French. Okay, 1 minute. So write it in the Q&A when you found it. So you have to remember how I told you to write a reference. Okay. First, the authors. There are two this time, so I put it in French because there is no exam this year. But if for next year's, write and instead of a, okay? Because you refer in English, but I think you could refer in French if you wanted to, okay? A reference. Georges, N, pour Nathalie, because my authors are here. Et Bergeron, E, for Eric. Then I wrote the date. It was published 19 mars 2021. So it was about a week ago. Then my title, Au Sénégal, la télé-réalité au service de l'agriculture. Okay, and it's easy. Write it, comma, then next. Available at. Alors here, to be honest, I had some issue with my accents. Okay, often when you copy and paste, accent become sort of figures and numbers. So remember to change that. If you see like 2, 3 percentage slash something, replace them by a, and you see that the rest of the word is there. So just check for the accents that they haven't been replaced by something which has nothing to do with your website. And then I put again the date of today because that's the day we are looking at that website. Okay, 22 mars 2021. It's easy. You do it for all of them, and you can even use it for your studies next year, whatever your studies are or will be. Okay, now, what do you do when you found a source? So I'm using La Commune de Paris because it was an easy one to use, but it's just an example as we cannot use a proper IRP and re-research. I'm doing something perhaps a bit more difficult than what you could do. But La Commune de Paris, so you read the text, you find that, you read everything about that document. So it's cut here, but it's not too long to read. You read it, 1971, Paris vit une période marquante de son histoire, etc., etc. So once that is done, you check, is it useful? If it's useful, you keep it. If it's not useful, you don't write anything about it, you forget about it, and you look for something which will be more useful for you for your oral. So is it useful mean also does it support the idea you want to express? Okay, so we pretend yes it does. So what you have to do now, look at the vocab in that document. Not the vocab which is difficult. Okay, like I thought reading that is quite an easy text in fact, and it's linked with theme 4. You find the words you already know from theme 4 like armistice, capitulation. Those words should ring bells while you are doing theme 4 now. Mais se sont insurgés, perhaps that word is difficult. So you should have a list of vocab where you note the new vocab from the document you found on the internet to be able to use that vocab in your oral, or to be able to understand what you're talking about if you quote that document. So se sont insurgés come from the verb s'insurger, and the verb s'insurger, just let you know, you could try in the Q&A if you got 2 seconds to tell me what it means. If someone knows, I leave you 5 seconds for that. S'insurger, what does it mean from your point of view and from what you can read there? Okay, s'insurger means to rebel. Okay, they rebel against the government. They're French. Okay, so so they rebel. So what part can you use to support your opinion in that document? I thought you could use any part. We don't have a proper question, so if something is useful, use it. What you can find, you got a date which tell you when the event happened. You've got the protagonist, Napoléon III, les Prussiens, les Parisiens, and the event itself. So all those bits you could use. Highlight them if it's on paper, or if it's online, write notes. So not the key points and the new vocab I already said. And when I say the key points, I said, like, for example, you could write a summary of that document. You don't need, when you quote a source, you don't need to quote the whole text. You summarize it, okay? Here in that document, you don't have stats, but if in a doc you find stats and you're someone who can memorize figures and numbers easily, not stats, because they can, they are the proof for your opinion on things. But here you could note facts like the date and the people taking part in that event. Okay, the protagonists. So I summarize it like les Parisiens qui refusent l'armistice et la capitulation. That's all. That's a short summary. And if I need to go back, I know what I need to look at. You could add la capitulation de Napoléon III le 28 janvier 1871. So next, write your 2-minute presentation. You've done your research, you've got sources, you wrote summaries about your sources, you wrote the new vocab, you learned in the sources. What do you do next? You write your 2 minutes presentation. It's about one side of an A4 page, okay? No longer than that. Longer than that, you will last far more than 2 minutes. 2 minutes is really short, so try to stick to it. So when it's done and you're sure it's your final bits with your introduction, your 3 points, for example, your sources, you mentioned your sources in it, you check that, you wrote a conclusion, learn it by heart. First of all, I would record it on my phone, timing myself to see if it lasts the time I need it to last. Okay, so practice it, timing yourself. Record yourself if you want to practice pronunciation. That's good because you can hear your pronunciation and you can improve it. Okay. Then check, always check if you mentioned your sources. Oh yes, I have. Or no, I should mention it. So add a source to, in fact, the source is your example to support your opinion. And if it's too short or too long, make amendments. Okay. It's rarely too short. Okay. It's often too long. So you need to make amendments, but keep those ideas somewhere because they can be useful for the discussion, these amendments. So then the presentation itself. Presentation is a summary of what you found and your personal response to the question you have asked. Okay, so it's a link between the sources and the opinion you've got on them. So it will last 2 minutes with no interruption. Those 2 minutes is why it's good to learn by heart your presentation, because you can show off, you practice your pronunciation and you recite in a way. So it's easy, 2 minutes with no interruption. It has to be analytical, like you're writing, in fact, but this year you're learning to be analytical, in fact, and it has to lead to a conclusion, which could be left for the discussion if your time is short. Okay, just introduce your conclusion and leave it. I'm pretty sure your teacher or the examiner will ask the question about your conclusion. What are your conclusions? Quelles sont vos conclusions sur vos recherches? If you leave it out, yeah, I'm pretty sure the question will be asked. So do not rush during your presentation. I know I said 2 minutes and now I'm saying do not rush. In fact, if you don't rush, you last the time you need to last, and it's easier for the examiner to understand what you're talking about. It's the same with me now. If I start rushing because I see the time is going, you won't understand everything I'm saying. Okay, it works both ways. Now, refer to the sources, but do not give a long list. Sometimes you think you quote the sources and you say what they are about and you carry on. No, they don't need. We don't need to hear two or three two sources in your presentation. Should be enough. 3 perhaps, but they're just there to support your opinion, not there to show that you know sources. No, they're a support, not a list. Okay. So use a wide variety of structure. Those 2 minutes are when you can show off your grammar knowledge, okay? Your subjunctive and things like that, because you learned it, so it's easy to remember them. Now, I put some useful phrases to start, because I think for a lot of students and even for us, when you start something, the beginning is always a difficult part, starting. When you started, you're fine, you can carry on. So you could say something like, j'ai décidé de parler de. Okay, I'm back to my Napoléon. Is my example tonight. J'ai essayé de parler de Napoléon. Okay, ou je voulais savoir si l'immigration des femmes était plus un problème que l'immigration des hommes, if we think of theme 3. Or j'ai appris que. I don't know, you learn something. J'ai appris que Napoléon est un sujet d'actualité. Okay. And je voulais en savoir plus. I wanted to know more about it. Ou après avoir lu, you could have read something in lesson or on your own, in fact, or you could have watched a movie which interests you and make you want to learn more about something linked with France. So après avoir lu ou après avoir vu, VU in that case, this or that, je voulais en savoir plus sur cette question sur, je sais pas moi, le handicap, l'immigration, la Seconde Guerre mondiale, character thing, anything linked with that. Okay, so I thought I give you 4 examples. Sorry, you could find more on website perhaps, but I thought it's to help you to start. In fact, now when you're mentioning your sources, say you use that video on theme 3. And you want to link it, that's your source, okay? It's where I found it. So what you say is, d'après ce que j'ai entendu dans une vidéo du Musée national de l'immigration, blabla, blablabla, la migration féminine est en augmentation, or anything you found about it in your video which can be useful. Cela m'a fait penser que, and then you give your opinion about it. You cannot just mention a source. You have to say why you're using it in your oral, in your presentation, but also you could use it in the discussion. If the teacher refer to something you've done research about, or try to mention it too in that time, in that discussion. So here we go. And next one, so you mention your video. Donc remember, d'après ce que j'ai entendu dans une vidéo, and the the place where you heard that, when you listen to that video. Also, if you using a radio, an interview in a radio, so France Inter, I use that one. J'ai entendu sur France Inter, on France Inter, ok, que l'immigration était en augmentation des pays d'Afrique centrale, ok? Ou j'ai lu sur TV5 Monde, in our case, that's the one, que la commune de Paris avait toujours une influence aujourd'hui, ok? Enfin, les Parisiens n'avaient pas changé depuis la commune. You could say that, use that question to say that. Ou j'ai lu dans un article du Monde, that's the newspaper, que blablabla. Ou dans l'article du Monde, and then you say the name of your article, okay? Du ou de, just, j'ai lu un article de France Télé, TV5, okay? If it was TV5, because TV means télévision, is feminine, okay? So la télévision, so un article 2. Mais du Le Monde, start with le. So because it's masculine, you can get rid of that bit of the title when you speak. You can say there's an article du Monde. Okay, you agree with your title too. So you have to know if it's masculine or feminine. But it's easy. And télévision féminin, a lot of the newspapers titles are masculine. So that's not too difficult. Okay, so I carry on now the discussion, 9-10 minutes. So avant la discussion, okay, you have to think of possible questions, and you could identify around 5 possible questions that someone could ask you, okay? Think about it. Some are really easy, and I will give you some example in a few seconds. But think of them, read your work and think, okay, what would I ask myself? So if you record yourself on your phone, it's easier. You listen to that and you write question while you're listening to yourself. Okay, so identify around 5 possible questions, because that will be 2/3 of that time, okay? Work out how those questions might best be answered, okay? So think of an opinion to answer the question. What's your opinion about this question? Justification, that's your source, what you read, your statistics, your facts, or you can counter argument, as we said before. Peut-être, mais je ne suis pas exactement d'accord, ok? Je ne pense pas que cet article dise cela, okay? I don't think that this article is saying that, or I don't think that this source is saying that, okay? Then here are some example of questions, some possible questions. They are general, they come mostly from WGC, so you can have them. Pourquoi avez-vous choisi ce sujet? That's an obvious question. Pourquoi avez-vous choisi ce sujet? Especially if we are interested in it. Okay, it doesn't work for the center that says speaking, but the other one can. Quelle source it works for the IRP. Quelle source avez-vous trouvé les plus utiles? Think about it. When you go to sources, you should think which one was the most useful for me. Like that, you're ready for that type of question. Quelles sont vos conclusions? You didn't have time to say your conclusion? That question will come. Quelles sont vos conclusions? Okay, so you have to have an opinion. You have to be able to answer your question, in fact. Pouvez-vous donner un exemple about something you mentioned in your speaking is where the cuts you've made are useful, because you cut out some example and you can, if the question is asked about it, you can refer to those examples that you cut because your presentation was too long, but you can still use now, okay? Or you could have the question, pouvez-vous développer ce point? Okay, could you develop this point? Because you were too short. Of course, you cannot say a lot in 2 minutes. Now, show that you, in the discussion, you have to show that you have understood what you have found and give your opinion as well as the conclusion you've reached. You have to use vocabulary to structure your answers, like cependant, d'ailleurs, au contraire. That's an easy one. If the teacher gives a statement and you don't agree, you could say au contraire, je pense que, okay? It gives you time to think about your answer too. Okay, so they're useful. En revanche, so you find 2 sources, mention one, what they're telling you. En revanche, those one told me that, okay? D'autre part, peut-être, par contre, probablement, okay? If you agree, probablement, but you could disagree with that one too, okay? Sorry, I'm I realize I'm running out of time, so I go a bit faster. If you don't understand a question, please ask for it to be repeated. Everybody will repeat. Everybody is there to help you with your oral. So you could have simply pardon, but because you will do the assessment this year with your teacher, you could be more elaborate and ask your teacher, je n'ai pas très bien compris, pouvez-vous répéter? You could do that with an examiner too, but sometimes the first time you say pardon, it's faster and easier. Okay, so those are two. You can ask questions if you don't understand, and people will repeat, changing the wording to help you. Now, just a quick checklist, and I will finish with that. Remember to ask yourself, do I know enough about the background of the subject? Okay. Does the topic allow me to develop interesting information, analysis, ideas, and opinion? Have I noted key points and new vocab from my sources to be able to use them? Have I noted key stats, the same facts and or quotation I can include? Sometimes you find really good quotation and you think, oh yes, I want to use that one. And have I planned which parts I will include in my 2-minute presentation and which part I will try to remember or use for the discussion? Okay, so that's it. J'ai fini. So, merci beaucoup de m'avoir écouté. Désolé d'avoir dépassé d'un peu plus d'1 minute. Si vous avez des questions, you could ask them quickly. Sinon, nous allons terminer là. Je rends la main à Madame Griffiths.
Merci. So that is the end of our 4th session on the IRP. If you have any questions, we'll give you just 1 moment to write them in the chat and then we'll be finishing. OK, merci. Il n'y a pas de questions. On va finir. Bonne chance. Au revoir.
Bonne chance. Au revoir.